Please welcome to the stage the fantastic Erin.
Hello, my name's Erin. I am a teacher. I teach English and composition here in Montreal. I actually live in this neighborhood. And I grew up in Oshawa, and that's in southern Ontario, not to be confused with Ottawa. Okay? The slogan for Oshawa when I was growing up was Oshawa, the city that motivates Canada. And that's because it had a large General Motors plant in Oshawa. Today, Oshawa's slogan is, prepare to be amazed. And this is a delightful challenge to those of us who have ever left Oshawa. So I do, however, think that as an adult, I can think back, and there are a few things that are amazing about Oshawa. Number one, Oshawa allowed the entirety of Canada to have the opportunity to pollute the environment by owning a car. Number two, Oshawa was home to the punk band with what I think is the best name ever, Voodoo Chicken. At Voodoo Chicken concerts, the audience would throw cheese slices at the band. Now, I've lived in Montreal for a bit, and so if you are interested in throwing anything at me, I prefer bagels and only from St. Viateur. Number three, Oshawa was right next to a town that had a really, really great figure skating club, which allowed me to have the opportunity to realize my dream of becoming a figure skater. I started figure skating when I was 5 years old, but I didn't do solo figure skating, I didn't do pairs figure skating, I didn't do ice dance. I, like Oshawa, like to amaze. And so I figure skated alongside 29 other teenage girls on a synchronized figure skating team. We were called the Whitby Ice Fire. Now that's, oh, it gets better. That's fire with a Y. Because that's fancy. And we competed against other teams. There were the Pirouettes from Laval. There were the Kitchener-Waterloo Queens, and that's Queens with a KW at the beginning. Somehow not as fancy. So I decided to join the team because I saw one of the routines. Every year the coach would choreograph a 4-minute routine. And this routine was done to the music of Run DMC's Tricky. I don't know if you know this song. It goes a little something like, it's time to rock around, that's right, all the time. It's tricky, 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 tricky. We wore red, white, and blue outfits, costumes. Those are the Ice Fire colors, with sequins and sparkles everywhere because it's fancy. And so I wanted to be a part of this. Another year, we had a theme of bikers, like motorcycle bikers, where we wore kind of jean skirts, bare midriffs, leather jackets, bandanas, and fake tattoos. This is high art, schwa style, prepare to be amazed. But over time, music changes, themes change. I mean, I used to really like Hall & Oates, and now, I really like Hall & Oates. But I have heard that people's music taste changes over time. So the other day, I was on the internet and I decided to look at the recent program routine of one of our arch rivals. This was Nexus from Burlington, Ontario. And this is, of course, Nexus, like bringing people together, but also Nexus spelled Nexxice, fancy. And no more Run DMC. They're really political in their skating, and they're wanting to make a statement. And so their theme last year was The Handmaid's Tale. So complete with red capes and white hoods. And what I can only imagine is plaintive anger at the patriarchy on their faces. But because of International Skating Union rules, maybe they were developed by men, I have no idea, you're not allowed to wear pants, and you're not allowed to wear long skirts. So this means it ended up kind of looking like The Handmaid's Tale, but sexy. So this kind of awkward, sexy sort of thing is a little confusing for my husband because he's British. So he doesn't understand things about, well, that too. And because it's British, it means that he has an accent. And, his accent is like the Handmaid's Tale short skirt of accents. That being, it's sexy. It also means that he ends up being seen as smarter than I am. It means that, just because of his accent, it means that, when he talks about reality TV like 90 Day Fiancé, he ends up sounding like he's expounding some kind of brilliance. When he orders a McDonald's, it sounds like he's talking about, gourmet food. And then he also makes, our daily life here in Canada seem just a lot more glamorous by calling Tim Hortons, Timothy Hortons Esquire. He says that he speaks real English. I say no, that English is weird. I speak normal English. This has led to a number of miscommunications. The first being last year, he turned to me, he said, we're quits. I said, the marriage is over? He said, no, because apparently for British people that means we're on the same page. So so I guess you'd say we're not quits with what we're quits means. Also, for underwear, he uses the term pants, unlike normal people who for underwear use the term underwear. This gives a whole new meaning to those International Skating Union rules. According to the no pant rule would make figure skating a whole heck of a lot more sexy than it already is. And when he says, I'm sorry, I immediately think that he is, entering into our Canadian apologetic way of being, when in fact, for British people, I'm sorry means I'm fuming mad and I'm going to be passive-aggressive to you for the next 24 hours. But with his accent, perhaps sexy. Anyways, I met Andrew when I was living in Jamaica. I lived in Jamaica for a time. I taught at a university there, very similar to the type of stuff that I do now. But when my friends heard that I was going to be moving and living in Jamaica, they all wanted to come and visit, pristine beaches, rum punch, reggae music, everything's all laid back. But I lived in Kingston. And, Kingston is like every major city. It's loud, full of traffic, pollution, and it's really not at all laid back. This whole kind of idea of the Jamaican Tourist Board, they say Jamaica, no problem. Well, in Kingston, it's more Jamaica, problem. But being there allowed me to learn a lot of things. I mean, things that I wouldn't have learned being a white lady here in Canada. I was often the only white person in the room. And when I would be around other white people, they would always be complaining about assumptions that were made about them. Even though they've been living there for a really long time, assumptions that were made because they were white people. These are assumptions like, oh, I don't know, I need directions, I'm a tourist, I don't understand the Jamaican language, or I don't really like spicy food. The thing about these assumptions is that none of them really ever have the cops called, because even assumptions about white people have significant amounts of privilege, okay? Which makes me think about something that's been happening at work recently. I have a colleague who's a men's rights activist, and that means that he wants to fight for the rights of cis, het, white, middle-aged dudes, which incidentally, that's him. And the thing about fighting for cis, het, white, middle-aged dudes when you're teaching in a college means it's not really that relatable to non-cis, non-het, non-white, non-middle-aged 16 to 21-year-old students who simply look at him and think, okay, boomer. When are we really going to actually talk about inequality? Because that's the thing for me, is that, we all have choices. I can choose to complain about, very specific situations to me, or I can do things like, for instance, be glad that someone thinks I'm a tourist and not a thief. Be happy that someone gives me directions, into a place that I've been to a million times. Carry around hot sauce if I want to adjust the heat of my jerk chicken. I can do that and then pour my actual energy into dismantling the white supremacist patriarchal system that affects every echelon of our lives every day. Who's with me? Thank you.
People of Sustainable Stand-Up, that was Erin.